Welcome to the Two Doors podcast, where we open the doors to Australia's top minds in tech, talent, and transformation. Hosted by Alexander Gill, founder of Two Doors Recruitment, we cut through the noise with real conversations from leaders building the future of work. Subscribe to the show to hear and see more of these types of conversations. Let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Two Doors podcast. I am here with Abed. Abed is a seasoned cybersecurity professional with over 20 years of experience in the industry. He began his career as a Unix security engineer and has since held a variety of roles across multiple organizations, building deep expertise in both technical and strategic domains of cyber. Abed worked as a senior manager at PwC Australia, where he advised clients on solving complex cybersecurity challenges and building the future-ready security strategy. Known online as Unix Guy, Abed is one of the world's most followed cybersecurity thought leaders, with a community of over 500,000 followers across various social media platforms. His content bridges technical insights with practical advice, helping the next generation of cyber professionals thrive. Abed, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, Alex.
Hey, I'm very excited. I've seen some of your content online and it's very, very impressive. So tell us what's been going on lately.
Yeah, that's very kind of you. Thank you very much. Yeah, just as you said, been really busy with cybersecurity consulting, but also I try to juggle cybersecurity consulting with content creation, and I also have my own learning platform as well. So it's a bit of a juggling act, but yeah, here we are. Really excited to be here.
Oh yeah, well that's what we were talking about just before we jumped on this, right? It's like some people say, how do you do it all? But it's learning how to work with your strengths, and then you're obviously doing your content, your consulting, and a few other things. And yeah, tell us more about because you do a training platform as well.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, you have a good point. How do you do it all? I think you get asked that. And when people ask me, how do you manage my time doing all of this? And I'm like, the answer is, I don't. I don't really manage my time. I just head down on one thing, try to get it done, and then jump to the other and just try not to burn out in the process. So, yeah, so I basically, yeah, my online name is Unix Guy. That's where most people have come across my content online. I essentially help individuals from all over the world land their first cybersecurity job, regardless of their background. Some have worked in IT, some have never worked in IT, and some have come from various disciplines like nursing or marketing, or even students who just want to land their first cybersecurity job. And in doing so, I essentially recommend like a step-by-step roadmap where I tell you, well, start with these basic training courses, you do them, do a few labs, prepare your resume, and then start applying to jobs. We've got various specializations within cybersecurity. The one specialization that I found that was underserved was GRC, which is governance, risk, and compliance. And that's the area where you conduct risk assessments, where you do report writing or compliance. It's an area where you're not the person doing the coding, but you need to understand, a little bit about the technical aspect, but you're not necessarily the engineer or the programmer. So yeah, I created a training platform called GRC Mastery, grcmastery.com, where basically I give you hands-on practical labs on how to learn GRC from scratch. We cover like frameworks like NIST and ISO 27001 and various other things. So I've got that going. I still actively create YouTube videos on the Unix Guy channel and finally on LinkedIn as well.
Well, thank you for putting all that out, and yeah, your platform's incredible. And I did want to ask on the GRC front because we had Daisy Wong, who does a bit of awareness on here as well, and Philippa, who's also at Kmart, and we were talking about how it's almost different personalities do different parts of cyber. Is there a personality that thrives in that GRC space?
Yeah, look, really good question, and I like that point because traditionally we all think of cybersecurity. All right, this must be the hacker or the young male in a hoodie in a basement doing coding and hacking. And that was nice and fun, but the truth is the real world doesn't work that way. It really is a corporate job where you perform various things, and the underlying goal is to protect the organization's most valuable assets or information assets. Let's say you've got a bank, and well, that bank deals with financial data. Financial data is stored in applications. So you do need the programmers, but you also need, the person who can understand privacy laws or who can talk to end users. Now, as far as personality, yes, I guess yes and no. It's a bit of a nuanced question. Usually, my advice to someone who's trying to land their first cybersecurity job or they just want to break into the field is don't be selective. The best job for you is the
That's
one that
good.
you can get. So get your foot in the door, and then you can perhaps gravitate towards something. I've got people telling me, well, I've landed this security analyst job, which is a bit of a generalist. I do a little bit of everything, but I absolutely love ethical hacking. I'm like, this is great. Perform your job, but learn ethical hacking on the side, then specialize in it. Now, as far as GRC, the nature of GRC roles is that you will communicate with people a lot. So if you love communication, and when I say communication, people think communication is like spoken. It's not just spoken. Communication is also through email or reporting. That's also a form of communication. Um, so if you're someone who enjoys communication more and you don't necessarily want to do a lot of coding, GRC is a perfect place for you. In fact, I used to be like obsessed with ethical hacking, digital forensics, and last thing I wanted to do was reporting. In fact, any project I tried to get someone else to do the report for me, but that has changed. So even you as a person will change and evolve. Now, if you tell me look at a source code, like I'd rather do anything but do that, I've lost the interest. So it can be a good pathway for that. But also, and more importantly, and I know your podcast touches a lot on leadership. Any cybersecurity leadership role is essentially a GRC role with people management component. So, as a chief information security officer or even a CIO, you're essentially managing the risk of the organization. You need to present risk findings to the board of directors or to the investors. That is actually GRC. On top of that, yes, you need to do people management and recruitment. So, I guess if you're someone who wants to progress further in your career, then GRC skills is a must. Alternatively, if you're someone who maybe you like coding, maybe you don't like coding, then there is a way for you. It's not all hacking. It's not all green and blue lights and all of that stuff. So it's just an avenue for other individuals. Those who absolutely love communication, they tend to thrive. Having said that, this is not a job just for extroverts. It's for everyone.
You're so right. There was a lot of wealth in what you just said, Abed, because at the end of last season, we did a panel discussion at AWS, right? And one of the big keys that they all advise juniors is work on your communication skills. We're in this AI revolution, right? Where everyone's sort of scared, is my job going to get taken? AI can't communicate. Yeah, it can. We all know when we get an email and someone's like, I was flabbergasted at your response. It's like, who uses that word? So that's a huge point. So I'm an ambivert, right? Which means that I'm quite introvert, but I come out of my shell around the right people and the right energy. But I have 10 tokens each day, and each time I interact, that gives up, and then I recharge in different ways. Whereas my partner, she's an extrovert, loves people. That's how she charges. So it's like almost learning your energy. And to your point about the helping juniors, what else would you recommend to people who are looking to get into cyber?
Okay, that's really like you've touched on a really important thing, and I love that you said in AWS they advised everyone to work on their communication. And before I answer, I'm actually curious when they gave that advice to people, did they tell them what to do to work on communication, or what is that? Was it an open-ended piece of advice?
Well, it was on the panel discussion, so I have to go back to the episode. It's out
Yeah.
on Two Doors podcast, and I mean, I think I project onto people what I think communication skills are, which is getting your inside world to the outside world, and be it that's like from a non-communicational, sorry, non-technical point of view, going, hey, this is what GRC is and explaining, or if you're explaining to people at CyberCon, it's explaining it in a different way.
Yeah.
So they were saying about relatability, but also your communication skills in terms of networking abilities of making new friends,
Mm.
not overcomplicating it. And yeah, they were touching on those points.
Yeah, look, I'm actually always curious to hear what people recommend in terms of communication skills because of the people I advise, they tell me, well, a common complaint is that, well, I've been told to work on my communication skills. I just don't know how to do that. If I knew how to have good communication skills, I would have done it. And I have sympathy for that, especially for a new generation where if you grew up talking to your friends over apps, you're already at a disadvantage. You already lost something important, which is the face-to-face communication. Look, we all use apps to communicate nowadays. However, we didn't grow up, or I didn't grow up using apps, so we've got that edge. With new generation, I think you need to make it a point to put more effort, and the way to do that is not through, let's say, video games. That is not communication skills. I'll actually take a chapter from your book where before the podcast you told me you do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as a sport. So like my advice to people, if you're a student or you're in high school or you're in the professional world and you find that you're a little bit shy or you want to sort of quote unquote improve communication skills, find something you love that takes you outside of the house and do that where you talk to people. That can be pickleball, basketball, team sport, cooking class, anything where you go communicate with someone you don't know before. Now, when I say these things, again, the back response says, well, I went to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class and I didn't talk to anyone. That's fine. Don't put pressure on yourself that if you do an activity for the first time that you have to talk to everyone. Just get out of the house, do it, keep showing up, and you will find that naturally your communication skills will improve slowly and surely. The other thing is a common complaint I see on my Discord server is I recommend people to go to cybersecurity conferences. So let's say there is a conference called B-Sides, which is a small conference, smallish, happens in almost every city in the world where you can go attend and it's usually $50 or $100 and you can meet people and at least two people from my Discord servers have gotten jobs from B-Side conferences
Wow.
with zero experience. So, however, I've been told by people as well, I went to a B-Side, I felt super intimidated, didn't talk to anyone, and I felt it was a negative experience. And again, I say, if you're going to a conference, don't put pressure on yourself that you must talk to so many people. Just go. If you feel a bit pressured, don't talk to anyone. Just attend the conference, listen, watch what people do. That's actually a step in the right direction. You are improving your communication skills. It's just not fast as you expected it to be. So that is communication skills. I know I've went on a big tangent about it, but I think it's an hugely important thing. I meet girls and guys in like their late 30s and they still struggle with that. And I say, it's the same advice. Get out of the house, whatever it is, join a running club, if you will. Now, as far as cybersecurity is concerned, the advice, I guess, usually summarize it in my videos. So if you just type on Google Unix Guy, you'll see my videos and I tell you, well, start, your training with something broad, let's say CompTIA Security Plus, Google Cybersecurity Cert. Will introduce you to the world of cybersecurity. You will see if it's something you even like or not. And then from there, you can start tackling more intermediate level stuff through hands-on practical labs. I mean, I go on and on in details in my videos, but in a nutshell, treat it like it's a new career field. It's not, an easy money. It's not a side hustle. You're changing careers, whether you do it if you're 15 years old or 50 years old. It's a career change. It will take as long as it takes 8 months, 16 months, 2 years. Give it time, study every day, and you will get to your goal.
That's brilliant, because I also think that you have to let people know that there's going to be a lot of discomfort. Like with anything, nothing great comes easy. Like, there's a lot of skills that you have to grow. And tell us more about your courses as well. So in the GRC space, someone can come in, and is it all sorts of levels, or is it
Yeah, so if we talk about GRC in specific, I think one thing we need to know about GRC is that even 5 or let's say 7 years ago, I lost track of time, we didn't call it GRC. GRC stands for Governance, Risk, and Compliance. We just used to call it Risk Manager or Information Security Analyst or whatever. Like the title used to be different, but now it's like a bit more formalized. This is, I think, issue number one. Issue number two is if you look at cybersecurity jobs, if you look at GRC jobs, most of them don't have the word GRC in them. So again, the jobs will be like cybersecurity risk analyst or NIST assessor or like really, really strange titles. So that's something that throws people off. Now, two things. So as far as the levels of progression, you start as a junior analyst or junior consultant, depends on where you work. Usually levels, I'd say your starting point depends on your experience, how much experience you have. If you're still new, if you're still someone who have maybe let's say one up until I say 5, people don't like it. Let's say 1 to 2 years. You're still new, you're still finding your feet.
Yeah.
You're at the beginning. So you're a junior analyst. The title might be anything. So just forget the titles. Let's say you're a junior analyst. Usually you work with a bigger team, ideally, where they conduct risk assessment. Your job might be to document the answers or to inspect the evidence or to conduct some interviews where someone already gave you the questionnaire or you go with a more experienced individual. So that can be one. You would be lucky if you're in a consulting firm because you'll get to see different environments. Whereas if you work somewhere like a bank, you'll only see just that bank. Now that bank might be huge, but you still just see that bank. So that can be one type of job. Now, again, the word GRC is a bit broad. So even you mentioned security education and awareness. I believe that's a line of work on its own. But sometimes, it gets grouped within GRC. It is essentially a governance role, if you will. That also can be in terms of, posting articles on SharePoint, educating people on basic cybersecurity hygiene, keeping up with the news, conducting user training awareness. So that can be another job. Now, at level one, let's say you're more experienced now, you're mid level, you could maybe do a bigger assessment. So instead of assessing one application, you assess a group of applications or a bigger project, or you could lead that project. You could maybe do something we refer to as line two risk management. There is so many things you can do, depends on your experience. And then finally, at the higher level, you could be a director, you could be a senior manager. Again, titles are all over the place. But in this case, you ideally manage a function, manage the cyber risk for a whole organization. And from there, the sky's the limit. As chief information security officer or head of cybersecurity, those are highly experienced, ideally highly experienced individuals. They have more than one skill. So GRC would be one of the skills they have, but typically they have something else, people management skills, lots of industry connections because you need to deal with vendors, with stakeholders, and so on and so forth. So that's really the levels. Now, as far as GRC Mastery is concerned, I designed it in such a way that if someone doesn't know anything about cybersecurity, you can still do it. You start with it, it will be your starting point. However, as you progress within the training, some exercises are harder, like let's say intermediate level. I even have, there is a chief information security officer in the US. He did it, and now he made it mandatory for everyone who joins his team to do it as induction. So yes, that in some of the stuff will be basic, especially in the beginning, but then I will give you stuff that are only for experienced individuals. You will understand it. However, most people end up repeating the training twice or three times, or they go back to it when they need to. You get lifetime access, so you don't pay anything extra. But that's really it in a nutshell.
That's a
Again,
big
when you try
point.
to summarize 20 years of experience in like a 8 week self-paced training course, I was very strategic and condensed so that videos are short, but there's no nonsense in it.
Brilliant.
It's bang on information. So I hope that summarizes very
Thank you
fully.
for articulating the junior, the mid, the senior, because sometimes people need to hear that because they're like, what am I aiming for? And to your point, that everyone who's great, they've got the basics down. Like you look at basketball, they're all able to do the shooting, the dribbling, the passing. They're able to collaborate. The greatest in all of the sports, they get the basics down. You hear of people that were, doing thousands of shots each day to get the basics down. And that's what people do in cyber. And in your eyes, what makes an exceptional GRC person?
Yeah, look, you've just a great example. It's actually, believe it or not, a controversial topic in cybersecurity, especially when we say the word basics, because on paper, yes, the basics is important. Yes, the basic is, the foundation is really important. However, when we actually go deep and more specific on what is the basics, on one hand, you have individuals, especially my generation, they'll tell you the basics of cybersecurity. Well, you're securing IT systems, and therefore you need to know everything about IT system because, and I'm quoting them, you cannot secure what you don't understand. Great statement on paper. However, let's go a little bit deep because cybersecurity is really, really broad. Just how much of quote unquote IT systems you need to understand, the rabbit holes is like an emptyless pit. You can keep going. There is no end. Um, so this is a really important thing. So we need to be specific on how much just IT knowledge we need. Some individuals say, well, if you want to be good at cybersecurity, go work as a network engineer for 5 years, then start learning cybersecurity. In practice, that actually doesn't work. It used to in my generation's time because we didn't have a choice. But today, cybersecurity is a discipline on its own. So if you want to be good at cybersecurity, learn cybersecurity. You've mentioned sports. So imagine if someone want to play if someone want to play basketball, you tell them, well, basketball is a sport. Go spend 10 years, become an Olympic jumper, and then once you jump high, then don't do that. Go play soccer for 10 years so you get be good. Then, but the truth is, any great basketball player, they spend their time playing basketball. And therefore, cybersecurity, you do cybersecurity. Now, you could come from a network engineering background, you could come from an IT background, or you could come from, heck, I've have people who have come from nursing and law enforcement. Where you come from doesn't matter so much. What matters is once you land cybersecurity job, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna continue studying? Are you gonna continue learning? The best people, like you mentioned, I see them in every conference. They are always learning. They're always doing things. They're always keeping up with technology. Whereas I've got colleagues who I worked with I think in 2014, I worked in, and I can say that now publicly, I worked in National Australia Bank in 2014, and I had really, really great engineers in the same team, and they were great firewall engineers. They know everything about that particular firewall at the time. Now, fast forward 11 years later, they still know that firewall really well, but they know nothing outside of that. So they didn't progress. They're still in the same place. And you know what? Sadly, if they lose that job, no one will hire them because you know what? That particular firewall is not really popular anymore. So again, when we say basics and foundation, cybersecurity can and should be treated, in my humble opinion, as a discipline in its own. You want to get good at GRC, learn GRC really, really well. There's so many frameworks. And then my typical advice is once you learn GRC, let's say you did GRC Mastery. Afterwards, you don't need to spend more time learning GRC, but you can learn something like security operation analyst skills, blue teaming, learn about detection. Now, you don't need to be a detection engineer, just learn a little bit enough to know how to ask questions. Learn a little bit of penetration testing, not so that you can do the hacking, but then if you get a penetration testing report, you can understand it and ask the right questions. And the same goes for someone who's, I don't know, you were an IT manager, your company grew, and now you became the chief security officer. You know, you're not exactly a cybersecurity professional, but you can learn. Like, it's not a life sentence. I get people tell me proudly, they say, you know what, I'm a cybersecurity manager, I'm a director, and I'm not technical, and I'm proud of it. I'm like, okay, that's perfectly fine, but it's why didn't you study? Like, we are here today. You've got the position, you've got the role, you're doing well. But what's stopping you from going online and learning a little bit of, about IT or about networking? Like, the knowledge is out there. We have self-paced training courses in cybersecurity for literally any topic. You can do it from your bedroom. It's cheap, it's affordable, and what you lack, you can make up for it. So yeah, I guess that's roundabout way to just harp on the basics that are
Oh
controversial
yeah.
in our space.
And what comes through as well is that you're saying that there's a thirst of knowledge and learning and growing as well. And I did want to speak with you about consequences because we had a great conversation. And like right now, there aren't many consequences if cyber is penetrate, if things break. We've had some massive things happen in the Australian history, but how could we have consequences in the cyberspace?
Yeah, look, this is unfortunately, I'd say, sadly, a dangerous topic. Um, because I think a few things that jump to mind when we talk about this, which is what you alluded to. Okay, so we had high profile data breaches in Australia, something like Vodafone. They got hacked, thousands of personal information was out there. And then we had, what was that, the airline recently?
Qantas?
Qantas, yeah. And we've had a lot of data breaches in Australia now, even worldwide. We had some data breaches where also there was nothing. Unfortunately, this creates data breach fatigue. So if you look at data breach news every single day, you'll be like, you know what, who cares? Nothing's going to happen. Data's out there. So this is problem number one. We become blasé about it. Whatever, data get breached. Unfortunately, it's more prevalent in Australia because there is literally zero consequences. We had Medibank, we had lots of data breaches, and we can sugarcoat it. Like, I stay quiet on LinkedIn when I see this, but I saw people is like, we want to thank the cyber team of X company for their, the way they handled it. I'm like, but the entire breach was not a sophisticated attack. It was literally negligence. It's almost like someone gave you all this data, you put the data in a hypothetical room, the room didn't have a door, and your entire company had no doors or windows, and then someone just took it, and that's it. And then you say, well, they were responsible in their response. Well, no, the entire thing was irresponsible, and there is no consequences. So again, we've got a zero consequence thing going on, and what does that communicate to other organizations? You work in a cybersecurity team, you need more investment to secure the applications. You go talk to the CEO, so like, we need to invest in this. I'm like, why? Like, what if you get hacked? So what? Nothing happens. There's literally nothing happens when you get hacked. And then the bigger question is, so why do we do cybersecurity? Why do we even care? And yeah, it's a moral question, it's an ethical question. Now, some data breaches are career ending. if you are, let's say, dealing with financial data, money gets stolen, your bank will close down tomorrow. So there's no way around it. Unfortunately, we've seen, in insurance organizations, the entire data is out and they're still in business, zero consequences. So I think to answer you, in Europe, they have a regulation called the GDPR, which is a privacy regulation. They did have some pretty hefty fines. So if you're dealing with the personal information of citizens in the European Union, you get hacked, their data is out, you will get penalized by the GDPR. In the US, there is the California Privacy Act, and they do have some similar things. But other than that, in Australia, we have the Privacy Act. We haven't seen any penalties that are worth reporting on. As soon as you start penalizing the organization for negligence, I'm not saying, you have an extremely sophisticated hack led by, a foreign government where you couldn't have done anything, fine. But when you have hacks because you're using Windows 2003 or you literally have everything in the open, this is negligence. There has to be consequences. And I think once it's financial, it will be felt, and then we will have more rigor around even cybersecurity recruitment. So leadership positions in cybersecurity, they shouldn't be given, in the form of nepotism or in the form of, we gave it to this guy or this girl because they've been in the company for 20 years. That is not a qualification. So I think we need to improve a little bit. I think Australian businesses are heading in the right direction, especially the new generation are a lot more vigilant. I think we just have a lot of legacy leadership, a lot of legacy way of thinking, and as you suggested, there's just this zero consequence behavior. Everything will be fine until it's not. So let's hope things will change. But I'm just not optimistic that things will change unless and until we see some serious financial penalties.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a great talking point. I think we're going to have a conversation about that with a few other leaders. And bringing this into land, Abed, anything else that you'd love to share with the audience?
No, not at all. Thank you so much, Alex. This has been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, I look forward to more more chats and bigger or smaller panel or just us. It's always a pleasure.
Likewise. So, and everyone that is interested in your course, grcmastery.com, and your YouTube channel is at Unix Guy.
Yeah, so just type Unix Guy. You can type it on YouTube or TikTok or just in Google, and you'll probably see my face somewhere. And yeah, I'll look forward to hear from all of you.
Fantastic. We'll put some links up there. So yeah, thank you very much for coming on the show.
If you've liked this episode, please like and subscribe. It helps the growth of the channel so we can keep interviewing some of the best minds that there are here. Thank you very much.